My channel, it's your friendly neighborhood sassy blonde writer coming at you with another video. So today I thought I'd decide to, as my 100 subscriber video, I would do some of my hot takes on pop culture. Why, you ask? Because I have a lot of them, and a lot of my friends who I tell them to think they're really funny, and so I decided to share them as a little celebration for reaching 100 subscribers. So if you want to hear more of my hot takes, obviously try to get more people to subscribe. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, sorry. Alright, so I decided to take some of my most ridiculous hot takes. So the question is, what do I consider a hot take? So anything I consider a hot take for me personally is when I'm watching a TV show and I kind of come up with probably ridiculous spin on what the show is actually trying to say and what it's actually about. So I decided I would choose 5 of my favorite hot takes. Some of them are more ridiculous than others. Take number 1. Twilight is Buffy fanfiction. Why, you ask? Well, I mean, think about it. Like, Buffy and Angel, they're like, Angel's a vampire, Buffy's a human, and they're all angsty and they're in love, and it takes up like most of the first 2 seasons. I haven't gotten through the whole show, so don't tell me if I'm wrong. I basically know what happens to Angel though. So I was watching through Buffy and I became mildly convinced that that's what Twilight is. And I mean, think about it. Makes a lot more sense. Which would also be funny because 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fanfiction. If my theory is true about Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey would be fanfiction of Buffy twice removed? Once removed? I don't know. Another thing I have to say about Buffy is that there's vampires, witches, serial killers, and Frankenstein monsters. This is like the crazy type of stuff that you hear that like only really happens in the suburbs. My hot take on The Sopranos is, hot take number 2. My hot take on The Sopranos is that it was actually made to convince our parents' generation that therapy is good and you can use it to break the toxic cycle within your family. Now, why am I convinced of that, you ask? Well, I actually have solid reasons for this. It's not like my Buffy hot. The reason why I'm convinced of this is because, think about it. Tony Soprano is the head of the mafia, right? He's the head of the Soprano family, or like de facto head or whatever. You would probably think he goes to therapy and talks about work because he has a lot of dark stuff happening behind the scenes. He watches people die. He's watched his father like brutalize people. He's seen all these different crazy things in his life that you'd think would be more traumatic, but he's actually just desensitized to it. But what sends him to therapy? Head of the mafia. What does he talk about in therapy all the time? His family issues. Hear that, Deborah? If Tony Soprano can go to therapy and just talk about family issues, maybe you should too. That's all I gotta say about that. I mean, the obvious hot take about The Sopranos is also that it's about breaking the toxic family cycles because, I mean, Tony Soprano, like, his father hit him a lot. And his father did really terrible things and like didn't really care about it. But part of the reason why Tony is in therapy is because he's dealing with the trauma from his mother being incapable of loving him because she wasn't getting proper treatment for what she had going on, and his father being pretty absent. I mean, there's like one episode where, sorry, spoilers, there's one episode of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano finds out that his dad let his mom take blame for getting rid of the dog, took the dog and gave it to like his mistress's family. And so I'm pretty sure that The Sopranos is about breaking the toxic cycle, but also it's to convince our families that therapy is good and therapy should be done regardless of who you are. And that's another thing that comes up with his doctor, Dr. Melfi, is that so many people are like, oh, why are you treating this man? He does so many horrible things, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things Dr. Melfi says is she's like, well, everybody deserves treatment for what they have going on because Tony Soprano also has depression. So that was my hot take on The Soprano. It is to convince our parents' generation, the boomers, that therapy is good. My hot take number 3 is on Breaking Bad. My hot take for Breaking Bad is that it was actually made to convince people to pay teachers more. And why is that? It's because, don't get me wrong, Walter White's a terrible person. I could do a whole episode on Walter White's character and all that stuff. But the reason why I'm convinced of this is because the main reason why he ends up turning to a life of crime initially is because he finds out he's diagnosed with cancer. He ends up working as a chemistry teacher and also part-time at the car wash. And why does he end up up turning to a life of crime initially because he can't make enough money to provide for his family. Now, if we just gave teachers the raise they deserve, then maybe Breaking Bad wouldn't have had to happen. Or, you know, Walter White could have been more honest with himself and it would have happened, but it wouldn't have had that looming in the background. So that is my hot take about Breaking Bad, and nobody will ever convince me otherwise. Even if the creator of Breaking Bad told me anything otherwise, I'd be like, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. What number is this? My next hot take, my fourth hot take, I think. I don't know. I'm a writer. I don't do math. My next hot take is on Better Call Saul, because I love Better Call Saul. I genuinely think it is a better made TV show than Breaking Bad, because the same writers had all the experience that they had from directing and filming and producing Breaking Bad, so they were able to kind of hit ground running with Better Call Saul, and they had all these characters that were already created, and that's always super helpful. Anyway, Better Call Saul, I don't think it's just about the life and times of Jimmy McGill. I truly believe that it is a show that is about, first, doing the wrong things for the right reason versus doing the right things for the wrong reasons. The calculus that goes into figuring out if the ends justify the means. It's very Machiavellian in that light. I also think, and I guess this will count as my part 2 hot take on Better Call Saul, is also about loving and grieving for a family member that didn't love you the way you loved them. And I feel like that's something that a lot more people go through than we really give it credit for. Also think, and this is I guess part 3 of this hot take on Better Call Saul, I also think that it's about flaws in the public defender system. Because I mean, it starts out with Jimmy McGill is a really good lawyer. He believes in what he's doing. He can't make ends meet being a public defender. He is living in the back of a nail salon that also doubles as his office. And that's his life when he's working as a public defender. It's ridiculous. Like, it shows you the truth about the discrepancies in the legal system, because these big law corporate lawyers who live very lavish lifestyle, but they didn't go into law for that specific reason. And then you have the opposite, which is Jimmy McGill in the first season, where he's not able to make ends meet. He's doing what he believes in. He's doing good work. He's keeping people who like made stupid mistakes out of jail and trying to give them a second chance, at least in the first season, and it sort of changes. And he really believes in what he's doing, but he's in a terrible living situation. And so that is my those are my, I guess, 3 hot takes on Better Call Saul. I love how I started off with Buffy and then we'll switch to The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul. So I'm gonna try to kind of even it out with Good Girls. It's actually, I really enjoyed watching this show, but I'm mildly convinced, I guess, that Good Girls is an argument for universal income. And my reason for thinking that is because the only reason, at least initially, that these women turn to a life of crime, like, in the first episode, that's not a spoiler, because it's, like, the first, if it's in the pilot, I feel like it's not a spoiler, but, like, the first episode, these women decide to rob a supermarket. The reason why they do that is because they're all best friends, and they don't have the means to survive. I mean, Beth, she's honestly the character I feel the least bad for, because she was living a really privileged life, and then all of a sudden she found out, 1, her husband was cheating on her, and 2, he squandered all the money in his failing business. So she needs the money to be able to provide for her 4 children. Annie is Beth's little sister, and Annie is a divorced single mom whose child is a teenager, and she's working at the supermarket. She works minimum wage. She gets sexually harassed by her boss. She can barely afford to put food on the table. She has a car that doesn't have a floor that doesn't have a full floor. There's holes in it, and Annie can't make ends meet. She's dealing with custody issues and everything with her ex-husband. She can't afford a lawyer. She can barely afford. And then you have Ruby. Ruby works as a waitress. Her husband, Stan, is a security guard, and they have 2 kids. They have a kid who has medical issues, and their insurance doesn't cover it. They can barely afford to pay bills, pay the electric company, pay their mortgage, and also make sure their kid stays alive. And they end up going to this doctor who treats them like garbage and is overloaded with patients, so then he doesn't really know what's going on, really gives them the proper attention they deserve, so they're trying to figure out how to provide for their kid. And so I'm convinced that that's the reason. It's about criticizing the wealth gap in America, on how these three women from completely different situations look to kind of band together to try to support each other, and then they end up turning to a life of crime, kind of like Breaking Bad, because they can't afford to exist. And so those are my 5 hot takes for this 100 subscriber episode. If you enjoy my hot takes, please share this channel and encourage people to subscribe and to watch, because I enjoy sharing my hot takes with people. If you have anything in pop culture that you wanted me to give my hot takes on, then you are welcome to share in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And of course, happy writing, have a great day.